Welcome to our deep dive into 1972.
Yeah,
You sent us some pretty interesting facts about this year, and we're excited to dig into them with you.
absolutely.
So 1972,
Yeah.
it was a year of huge leaps forward and, some really hard times too.
Oh, yeah, a year of contrasts for sure.
Exactly. So are you ready to take a trip back in time to see how this year shaped the world we know today?
Let's go.
All right, let's start with something that really shook the world, the Munich Olympics.
Right.
The goal was to celebrate global unity, but then that horrific attack by Black September happened.
Yeah.
It really cast a dark shadow over the entire event.
It's true, and it totally changed how we think about security at these big international gatherings.
How so?
Well, before the Munich massacre, security was pretty relaxed.
Makes sense.
But after that, attack organizers and governments everywhere had to completely rethink their whole approach to security.
Wow.
That's why we see such tight security measures today.
It's a tragic reminder of how fragile peace can be, even at a global sporting event. And while we're talking about events that shook public trust, we have to talk about Watergate.
Oh, yeah.
It started as a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters,
Right.
but it just spiraled into this massive thing.
A web of cover-ups and abuse of power.
Exactly. And it eventually brought down President Nixon.
It's incredible how much investigative journalism played a role in uncovering the truth about Watergate.
In what way?
Reporters like Woodward and Bernstein really dug deep. They followed every lead and put the pieces together to expose that huge conspiracy.
It's like a real-life detective story.
Exactly. That era was a turning point for investigative journalism. It showed just how powerful it could be in holding the powerful accountable.
It definitely highlights how crucial a free press is for a democracy.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, in the midst of all this political turmoil, 1972 was also a year of some big innovations.
Absolutely.
Like the first digital watch, the Pulsar P1, came out.
Oh, yeah?
I can only imagine how cool that must have been back then, especially with that $2,100 price tag.
Yeah, it was a real status symbol. And more than that, it was a sign of a new era in technology.
In what way?
Using LED lights to show the time? That was revolutionary.
I bet.
And it pushed the whole watch industry to change. Traditional watchmakers had to start embracing digital technology.
Wow. So it wasn't just about having the time on your wrist.
Mhm.
It changed the whole industry.
Exactly, and led to the affordable and feature-packed digital watches we have today.
That's amazing. And that same year, we also got the first scientific calculator.
Right.
I can't even imagine trying to do complex calculations without one now.
It was a total game changer. Before that, scientists and engineers were stuck with slide rules and clunky mechanical calculators. But this new portable and affordable scientific calculator made those tough calculations so much easier and more efficient.
So it sped things up for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. It even played a role in accelerating scientific and technological advancements.
That's incredible to think about. And then there's the compact disc.
Right.
It didn't really take off until the 80s, but
Yeah.
1972 is when this tech was first being developed.
A total revolution for audio quality and durability.
How so?
Compared to vinyl records, which got scratched and wore out easily, CDs offered a much clearer and longer-lasting way to listen to music.
And they were smaller, too.
Exactly. They were a huge step towards digital music and changed the whole music industry.
From watches to calculators to music, 1972 was a year of huge breakthroughs. And it also changed how we experience entertainment with the launch of HBO.
Oh, yeah, the first subscription-based cable TV network.
A total shift from traditional TV.
Absolutely. Viewers got original programming without all the ads, and it focused on movies and special events.
That's a pretty big deal.
It was. It set the stage for the streaming services we have today.
That's so interesting to see how those changes in 1972 are connected to how we live and entertain ourselves today.
It really is.
But it wasn't all about gadgets and TV.
Right.
This year saw big leaps in the digital world, too, with the invention of email.
Thanks to Ray Tomlinson and the @ symbol.
Hard to imagine life without it now.
Before email, we were stuck with letters and phone calls, which could take forever.
And now we can communicate instantly, no matter where we are.
Exactly.
And speaking of digital breakthroughs, 1972 also brought us Atari and the huge success of Pong.
Oh, yeah, Pong.
I remember those pixelated paddles.
Simple, but so addictive.
Exactly. But it was more than just a game. It was a social phenomenon.
People were gathering in arcades, bars, even at home, just to play Pong.
So it really did kick off the video game revolution.
It captured people's imaginations and gave us a glimpse into the future of interactive entertainment.
From those simple beginnings to the complex immersive games we have now, It's amazing.
The power of innovation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And 1972 wasn't just about technological advances. It was also a year for important social and historical milestones, with some big steps towards equality, like Shirley Chisholm's presidential campaign.
As the first Black woman to run for president in the U.S.
Exactly.
It was a historic moment, even though she faced tons of challenges and prejudice.
A true pioneer.
Absolutely. She paved the way for future generations of women and people of color in politics.
And that same year, we also saw the passage of Title IX,
prohibiting gender discrimination in education programs.
a landmark achievement that's had a huge impact on women's access to education and athletics.
It wasn't easy. Title IX faced a lot of opposition and challenges.
I can imagine.
But its impact is clear. It opened doors for countless women, and its legacy still shapes the fight for gender equality today.
It's a good reminder that progress takes constant effort and challenging the status quo.
Couldn't agree more.
And we can't forget the first female FBI agents who broke barriers that year, too.
Another step towards equality.
So we've seen leaps in technology, political upheaval, and strides towards social change. But as you said, 1972 was a year of stark contrasts.
Definitely.
So let's shift gears to something a bit lighter. The vibrant pop culture scene of 1972.
Sounds good.
I mean, where do we even begin?
How about with a visit to the Corleone family, the premiere of The Godfather?
In 1972,
Yeah.
The Godfather is considered one of the greatest movies ever made. What do you think made it so impactful?
So many reasons. Marlon Brando's performance was captivating, and his refusal of the Oscar brought attention to important issues.
Right.
The story, the characters, the cinematography, everything was top-notch.
It really set a new standard?
It's a film that stays with you, and it explores those timeless themes of family loyalty, ambition, the dark side of power.
In 1972, also saw the premieres of iconic TV shows like M.A.S.H. and Sanford and Son.
Shows that weren't afraid to push boundaries and address important issues.
No way.
M.A.H., with its humor and wartime drama, made powerful statements about the Korean War and the costs of conflict.
Right.
And Sanford and Son challenged stereotypes and brought discussions about social justice right into people's living rooms.
And we can't forget about David Bowie and his alter ego, Ziggy Stardust.
A cultural icon.
Absolutely. His androgynous style, those theatrical performances, his thought-provoking lyrics, it all challenged norms and inspired countless artists.
His influence is still felt today in music, fashion, and art.
We've covered so much ground already. Technology, social change, pop culture, even political scandals.
1972 was a busy year.
It was. But before we wrap up part one of our deep dive into this incredible year, let's step into the world of sports.
Let's do it.
1972 saw some incredible athletic achievements, starting with Mark Spitz at the Munich Olympics
7 gold medals in swimming.
and setting multiple world records.
A display of pure athletic dominance.
But sadly, those achievements were overshadowed by the tragedy that unfolded at those same games.
The Munich Massacre, a reminder of how quickly things can change and how fragile peace truly is.
It's a moment in history that's both inspiring and heartbreaking. But even amidst that tragedy, there were still moments of incredible sporting glory in 1972.
Like the Miami Dolphins achieving a perfect season undefeated all the way to the Super Bowl.
That's teamwork and dedication at its finest.
Absolutely.
And Billie Jean King dominated tennis, winning 3 Grand Slams and becoming Sports Illustrated Sports Person of the Year.
More than just a champion on the court, she was a powerful advocate for equality.
Absolutely. Her victory in the Battle of the Sexes against Bobby Riggs became a symbol of the fight for women's rights and equality in sports.
And paved the way for future generations of female athletes.
Wow, we've covered a lot in part one of our 1972 deep dive.
A whirlwind of a year.
From the Munich Olympics to the birth of email, the rise of David Bowie and Billie Jean King.
So much happened.
It really has been an incredible journey so far. But before we dive into part two, I'd love to hear what's resonating with you the most from what we've talked about so far.
Yeah, what surprised you? What piqued your interest?
Let us know. We'll be back soon with part two of our deep dive into 1972, where we'll explore even more about this pivotal year and dive deeper into its everyday life and culture.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into 1972. We've only just scratched the surface of this amazing year.
I know there's so much more to uncover. We talked about the big events, the tech breakthroughs, and the cultural icons, but I'm curious about what everyday life was like back then. What was it like to live in a world without smartphones, the internet, or personal computers?
It's a great question. Imagine a world where you couldn't Google something or connect with friends online instantly.
Wow.
Things moved at a much slower pace. People spent more time outside interacting face-to-face, and their entertainment was completely different.
Speaking of entertainment, we touched on Atari and the success of Pong, but You mentioned another early home gaming system, the Magnavox Odyssey. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the Magnavox Odyssey came out in 1972, and it was the very first home video game console.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't as fancy as the gaming systems we have now.
I can imagine.
The graphics were simple and the gameplay was basic, but it was revolutionary.
I bet.
It was the first time families could play video games right in their own living rooms.
It's incredible to think that something as common as video game consoles can be traced back to that one year.
1972 was a turning point for sure.
It definitely was a huge year for home entertainment. And while we're on that topic, let's talk about television. We already talked about MESH and Sanford and Son, but there was another show that premiered that year and became a huge hit, The Waltons.
The Waltons, yeah. It was such a heartwarming show.
What was it about?
It was set in rural Virginia during the Great Depression, and it really resonated with audiences because of its themes of family resilience and community.
I can see why that would appeal to people, especially during such a turbulent time.
It was a reminder of simpler times, and the messages of hope and compassion really resonated with people who were dealing with the anxieties of the early 70s.
It's interesting how pop culture often reflects the mood of the times, offering both an escape and a way to process what's going on.
Definitely. And speaking of reflecting the times, 1972 also saw the rise of a rather peculiar cultural phenomenon, the pet rock.
The pet rock.
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy now,
A little bit.
but it was a national craze. People were buying these ordinary rocks packaged in cardboard boxes with breathing holes,
Really?
and they were treating them like pets.
I guess in a year filled with so much change and uncertainty, people were looking for something simple and fun.
Exactly. A pet rock was low maintenance, quiet, and always there to listen.
No arguments there.
Yeah.
But 1972 wasn't all about fads and fun. It was also a year of significant updates to things we still rely on today, like the 1972 revision of The Joy of Cooking.
Oh, yeah, The Joy of Cooking, a culinary classic.
Absolutely. It's been a staple in kitchens for generations. What was so special about this 1972 update?
It reflected the changing tastes and trends of the time. It introduced new recipes, techniques, and ingredients to home cooks all over the country.
So some of the dishes we enjoy today might have come from that updated edition.
That's right. And while we're talking about things that stand the test of time, let's not forget one of the most iconic cars in history, the Volkswagen Beetle.
Ah, the Beetle, a classic.
In 1972, it officially became the best-selling car of all time, surpassing the Ford Model T's long-held record.
Wow.
It's a testament to great design and affordability, a car designed in the 1930s that went on to be so popular worldwide.
A symbol of peace, love, and adventure.
And 1972 also saw the start of construction on one of the world's most famous skyscrapers, the Sears Tower, now known as the Willis Tower.
Ah, the Willis Tower. A true icon of the Chicago skyline.
When construction began in 1972, it was a symbol of ambition and innovation,
And it became the tallest building in the world for over 2 decades.
a symbol of American ingenuity and architectural skill. It's still inspiring to this day.
Before we move on to the world of politics, I have to ask about something you mentioned, the price of gas in 1972.
Oh yeah, prepare yourself for some sticker shock. The average price was just 36 cents per gallon.
36 cents. Wow. Times have certainly changed.
A stark reminder of how economic forces and global events can impact our everyday lives.
That's for sure. But let's shift gears now and delve into the political landscape of 1972.
Okay.
We already touched upon the Watergate scandal, but I have a feeling there's a lot more to unpack about the political drama that unfolded in 1972.
You're right. Let's dive in.
All right, so we've explored all sorts of things about 1972, the technology, the culture, everyday life, even the price of gas.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has. And now it's time to step into the political arena, which you said is full of surprises and unexpected turns.
Oh yeah, 1972 was a wild year in politics.
So where do we begin?
Well, we've talked about Watergate, but we need to emphasize just how significant it was. The break-in at the DNC headquarters turned into this massive scandal that revealed so much corruption and abuse of power.
And it reached the highest levels of government.
Exactly. It really showed that no one, even the president, is above the law.
It's a story that still fascinates us today. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because it shattered the image of the presidency. It showed that power can be misused and that we need to hold our leaders accountable.
And the role of the press.
Huge investigative journalism played a key role in uncovering the truth about Watergate.
It showed the power of a free press.
Absolutely. Watergate had a major impact on American politics. It changed how we view our leaders and led to important reforms.
Like campaign finance and government transparency.
Exactly. It was a turning point.
But 1972 wasn't all about political scandals. It was also a year of some pretty remarkable diplomatic breakthroughs. like President Nixon's visit to China.
Right. A Republican president known for his anti-communist views goes to communist China.
A country the U.S. had no official relationship with at the time.
It was a bold move, a real gamble.
And it paid off.
It did. It was a pivotal moment in the Cold War.
What made Nixon make such a drastic change in foreign policy?
Well, Nixon was a brilliant strategist. He understood that the world was changing, and he saw an opportunity to take advantage of the tensions between China and the Soviet Union.
So he wanted to play them off each other.
In a way, by opening up to China, he could isolate the Soviets and gain an edge in the Cold War?
And maybe open up some new economic opportunities, too.
Exactly. It was all about realpolitik, putting practical concerns ahead of ideology.
And how did the visit actually go?
It was a whirlwind of meetings and events. The images of Nixon and Chairman Mao shaking hands were broadcast around the world.
It must have been a shock to a lot of people.
It signaled a major shift in the relationship between these two superpowers.
And it paved the way for the official establishment of diplomatic relations a few years later.
And for increased trade and cultural exchange.
So Nixon's trip to China was a huge win for diplomacy. It showed the power of communication and collaboration.
Absolutely. Even between former adversaries.
But back in the U.S., 1972 was also a presidential election year.
Right. Nixon was running for re-election against George McGovern.
And this election was historic for a couple of reasons.
It was the first time all 50 states used primaries and caucuses to choose their candidates.
Which is how we still do it today.
And the 26th Amendment was also, in effect, lowering the voting age to 18.
So millions of young people could vote for the first time.
It definitely brought new energy and perspectives to the political scene.
Did it have a big impact on the outcome?
It's hard to say for sure, but Nixon ended up winning in a landslide. He took 49 out of 50 states.
It's kind of ironic considering the Watergate scandal was already brewing.
Right. The seeds of his downfall were already being planted, even as he celebrated his victory.
1972 really was a year of contrasts with triumphs and tragedies, scandals and breakthroughs.
It was a year that showed us the best and worst of humanity.
And it left a lasting mark on the world we live in today.
It reminds us that we're all part of history and that our choices matter.
Well said. It's been an amazing journey exploring the complexities in 1972. We've covered a lot, but there are countless other stories and individuals from this year that are worth exploring.
I encourage everyone listening to keep digging, keep learning, and keep asking questions.
That's what it's all about. Thank you for taking us back in time with your list of fascinating facts.
It's been a pleasure discussing this with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into 1972. Until next time.